Situated in the town of Bozeman, Montana, the Museum of the Rockies is a world-renowned dinosaur museum that is home to a plethora of different exhibits, such as an enormous collection of T-Rex and Triceratops specimens. Speaking of T-Rex, this museum at the time of my visit was hosting a very special exhibit centering around Sue the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is one of the most famous dinosaurs ever discovered because it is one of the most complete and largest T-Rex specimens ever found. Upon entering the museum, you are greeted with an enormous life-size statue of Sue, which is absolutely beautiful. There are a plethora of different plaques and informational tidbits for you to read, as well as the skulls of several prey items for Tyrannosaurus Rex back in its day. There's a ramp leading to another room in the museum where you can see a replica of Sue's skeleton. The original, of course, is in the Field Museum located in Chicago, but this is a pretty accurate representation of what it looks like. There's also a lot of information about Sue herself, as well as what her world and life would have been like according to science. Sue's skeleton is also displayed alongside the skeleton of Triceratops, which of course is the most famous prey item of Triceratops in the late Cretaceous. In another section of the museum, one can find the rest of the Museum of the Rockies dinosaur displays, including Big Al. Now, in a previous video, you'll remember that I showed you the skeleton of Big Al. That museum is, of course, very famous for having that skeleton, but it's just a cast. The real bones are here, and although they don't form an actual skeleton, they are still awesome to see. Another dinosaur present in this first of 3 rooms in this section of the museum is Deinonychus. I talk a little bit about Deinonychus in the Dinosaur Museums of Utah video I made a few days ago, and you can check that out in the corner of your screen now. Moving on to our second room of this section, and we have a lot of dinosaurs that have been put on display here, Maiasaura and Daspletosaurus not being the least of them. Daspletosaurus, which name means frightful lizard, was a genus of tyrannosaur that lived 77 to 74 million years ago in North America. Its arms were proportionately longer than many other tyrannosaur genus, and at 8 to 9 meters long, it was slightly smaller than its more famous cousin. Living at roughly the same time period and in the same country, as well as coming in at about the same length, Maiasaura is a hadrosaur with a name that means good mother lizard in Greek. The museum also had on display this little guy, Ceratops, a diminutive ceratopsian also from the late Cretaceous of Montana. This guy measured 2.5 meters long. A much more famous animal they had here was Mosasaurus, a marine lizard that lived in the Maastrichtian stage of the late Cretaceous alongside T-Rex 66 million years ago. Something interesting of note is even though Mosasaurus is much larger than Tylosaurus at 12 meters long, the Mosasaurus on display here is actually much smaller than many of the Tylosaur mounts I've seen on display. From here we enter the third and final room of the museum, this one containing a plethora of T-Rex and Triceratops fossils, a couple of which are actually quite famous. The centerpiece in this room is this enormous T-Rex skeleton. It's not any particularly famous specimen, but if you look at the fossil itself, there's the light parts, which are casted, and the darker parts, which are real bone. A fun fact here is that Research Casting International made the fake bones, and I'm actually affiliated with them because the museum that I work at back home is actually supplied partly by Research Casting International, which is based out of the same place where I live, which is very cool. Also on display here is Yoshi's Trike, one of the most famous Triceratops specimens known to date. It's famous because of its brown horns, which are much longer than any other Triceratops specimen we've ever found, at almost 4 feet long. They also have on display a multitude of Triceratops skulls, arranged in order of how they would have grown up. The babies would be very, very small, with epicypitals, the horns around the frill, present. Their horns would be undeveloped and curved upwards. The adults, meanwhile, would have their epicypitals reduced and their horns would be curved downwards. They had the same thing on display for T-Rex, where the juveniles would have much more slender and thin skulls, whereas the adult skulls would be much more robust and powerful. Overall, this was a really impressive museum. It was honestly worth it just for being able to see Sue alone. But having some Research Casting International representation in there was also very well appreciated. Overall, really enjoyed this one. Thank you for watching this video, but be sure to stay tuned as many more museums will be visited on this channel soon.